Somewhere on a bloodied street, a young man stands over the men who just tried to kill him, breathing like he's barely started, and the mind behind his eyes doesn't belong to him. Roman Dimitri, the son everyone calls the family embarrassment, is dead. What woke up in his body a few hours earlier used to run half of a world called Marim. His name is Junghek Baek. He was the strongest man alive there, a demon overlord who beat down hundreds of thousands of warriors before dying quietly, on his own terms. Then he opened his eyes in a stranger's skin, in a kingdom that's never heard of Marim, with his own servant staring at him like he lost his mind. Before breakfast, he'd already grilled that servant on every basic fact of his new life: who he is, where he lives, whether the world he came from even exists here, and brushed off the one thing he was actually supposed to care about today. His fiancé is arriving. He's got something more important to do first. By the time he's alone, the truth settles in. He wonders, briefly, if waking up here is a mission from some higher power, or punishment for refusing to ascend when death offered him the choice. He doesn't dwell on it long. Whatever this is, he decides, he's going to live in it his own way, not the dead boy's way, and not by anyone's permission but his own. That decision gets tested almost immediately. Out in public, a gang called the Blood Fangs is beating a debtor half to death, telling him to just die already. Everyone around them looks away. They always do, because the Blood Fangs run high-interest loans across the region, and nobody crosses them. His servant advises the same thing: don't get involved. He doesn't listen. He walks straight into it and tells them to stop. The thugs laugh at him. To them, he's just another spoiled aristocrat playing tough. So he does something colder than lecture them. He has his servant lay out the actual law. Turns out insulting a member of a noble house is a capital crime here. He doesn't need permission after that. What follows isn't a fair fight. It isn't even really a fight. A blade flashes. A man drops. Another reaches for a weapon he never gets to use. Junghek Baek cuts through the group in seconds, blood painting the cobblestones, and the one thug he leaves alive gets to keep his life, minus an eye, as a lesson about respect. Then, standing over the wreckage, he says his own name out loud for everyone watching. If anyone has a problem with how he handled this, he tells the crowd they know where to find him. Nobody there knows what they just watched. The dim-witted Dimitri, who spends his days on nothing, has apparently learned to kill. For a man who once commanded armies, mopping up street thugs is beneath insulting, and he knows it. He's furious, honestly, at how weak this borrowed body is. A few hits, and he's already out of breath. He orders the mess reported and cleaned up, and starts quietly cataloging everything wrong with the meat suit he's stuck in. No trained energy, no idea how to move it. Fixable, eventually. Before he can leave, the boy he just saved catches up to him, limping, trying to say thank you. He shuts that down cold. He wasn't protecting anyone. He was enforcing the law, and that doesn't erase whatever debt got this kid beaten in the first place. Threaten his tongue if he lies, and the story comes out anyway. His parents borrowed from the Blood Fangs to buy farmland. The gang deliberately destroyed the crops, so the loan could never be repaid. And the real reason was that they wanted his little sister. He begs for her to be saved. Something in the boy's desperate stare snags at Roman's memory. It's the same look he once saw in a monster, called the Demon of Lunacy, one of the heavenly guardians from his old life. He doesn't promise anything sweet. He promises to check the story and handle it properly. And privately, he has a feeling this kid isn't done crossing his path. Meanwhile, across the region, his actual fiancée is finally on her way to meet him, and dreading it. A month earlier, her father broke the news that House Lawrence's finances are collapsing, and marrying her off to the Dimitris is the only way out. Even now, rattling along the road toward Dimitri land, she keeps circling back to the same bitter thought. Her own father is handing her off like a debt payment, and the family he's handing her to isn't even one she respects. She didn't take it well when she first heard. In her mind, House Dimitri is old mine money, and Roman himself is a spoiled tantrum thrower who apparently fought his own brother for the right to marry her. She'd actually been meant to marry his younger brother originally, before Roman threw a fit and insisted on taking her for himself. One more entry on a long list of reasons she's already decided to dislike him before they've even spoken. So when they finally meet, she doesn't waste time. She asks him to call the whole thing off, and he agrees instantly, to her shock. He tells her flat out he doesn't think he's a fit husband for someone like her either, then announces he'll take full public blame for the broken engagement and walks away, unbothered by whatever reputation that earns him. his father is not so unbothered. When Roman casually mentions he's already discussed the cancellation with her, his father explodes. Years of trying to give him a good life, a marriage that could have shored up the family's political standing, thrown away in one conversation, and Roman didn't even think it worth a real discussion first. A hand lashes out before the anger even finishes forming into words, and there's a price attached to all of it. His father was going to pull strings to keep him off the battlefield during the kingdom's mandatory service. Now Roman's headed for war in 6 months, and, after everything with the bloodfangs on top of it, his father tells him he's on his own from here. No more favors, no more cleanup. He doesn't apologize. He caused this, he says, so he'll fix it himself. Even the fiancé he just ended things with can't help but warn him on his way out. The bloodfangs won't forget what he did to them. Ask your father for help, she tells him. He just calls her nosy and leaves. The morning after, his servant is spraying him down with cologne to cover the smell of blood before his formal first meeting with his fiancée. The meeting he's already technically had unofficially. He tells himself he'll be gentle with her, that she hasn't done anything to deserve his temper. That plan lasts about 1 sentence. She opens with attitude. He decides she doesn't get politeness either, and rather than mend anything, he needles her. Tells her she never expected him to be the one trying to escape this marriage, that he already promised to shoulder the blame, so she has no say left. He'd honestly rather never see her again. Privately, though, he admits the real reason he took the blame. A reputation for breaking engagements will make it much easier to reject every other marriage proposal that comes his way. At home that night, his parents talk quietly about him. His father admits he lost his temper with Roman again, a habit from back when they were commoners, and Roman took the brunt of it, a habit he swore he'd left behind once they became nobles. His mother reminds him gently that Roman is the only one of their children who actually lived through their poor years, and that maybe that's why he's different now. They agree there's still time to fix things, and they're worried enough about the Bloodfang situation that they quietly summon their knight captain to protect Roman without telling him. He, of course, has no intention of waiting for backup. His servant fills him in on how the Bloodfangs actually built their reputation. They wiped out a rival gang in a turf war, and the fear from that massacre is the only thing keeping people compliant. He isn't impressed. It's only dangerous, he says, if you're afraid of them. He takes his servant out to eat, then ditches him. For his own protection, he claims, not out of trust issues. His servant refuses to stay put and insists on tagging along, and Roman actually softens for a second, telling him the most loyal thing he can do right now is stay behind and stay safe. It's such an uncharacteristically thoughtful thing to say that his servant is genuinely stunned. Then Roman does something deliberate. He lets himself be seen, alone on the one day the household's guards are all off training. If the Bloodfangs want revenge, this is the opening he's handing them, and he knows it. He's not hiding from a fight. He's inviting one, on his own terms, in the one window where nobody else can get in his way first. They take the bait. A group of them ambushes him in the open, promising payback. Word travels fast. His servant sprints to report that Roman left the house without a single guard, and is probably walking into a fight with the Bloodfangs. The knight captain and his men laugh it off at first. The dimwit doesn't get into fights. But orders are orders, and there's a standing directive to protect him no matter what. They mobilize. They're too slow. The ambushers who cornered him get exactly what the last group got. Broken in seconds. He leaves one alive just long enough to demand a name. Who leads the Bloodfangs? That answer leads him to a pub the gang uses as a front. He walks in and orders a specific drink by a specific code phrase, the kind of password only someone inside the organization would know. The bartender stalls, Roman presses further with the rest of the sequence, and the whole room realizes he's not a customer. They jump him. This is the first time he actually reaches for his old power, just a sliver of it, enough to compensate for how criminally weak this body still is. He breathes it in like it costs him nothing, because by his old standards, it doesn't. A fist meets a jaw, a table splinters, a grown man hits the floor and doesn't get back up. It's barely a fraction of what he used to command, and it's more than enough to put 3 grown men down and draw the local security force's attention to the noise. Once the room's clear, he corners the bartender for a real conversation. By the time the knights finally catch up, all they find is the aftermath, and the dawning realization that every bit of this carnage is his handiwork. A survivor upstairs gives up the last piece. The Bloodfang's actual base isn't even on Dimitri land. It's on Lawrence territory, his ex-fiancé's family's territory. while the household scrambles to catch up to a son none of them recognize anymore. He's already several steps ahead, tearing straight through the organization that thought threatening him was a good idea. He's got a captive tied to a chair, 2 fingers already gone, and a very simple pitch: talk, or he goes after the man's son next. The captive spits back that he'd rather die, daring Roman to finish it, and promising the Bloodfangs will avenge him. Roman doesn't flinch. He just brings up the photograph of the man's son again. It's not really a question anymore. Whatever answer the man gives after that, he gives it for a reason that has nothing to do with courage. Word reaches the Bloodfang's other outposts that one man wiped out an entire branch alone, and their boss refuses to believe it, ordering every remaining member mobilized to kill him before the Dimitri Knights can even arrive. Meanwhile, the political backdrop about to collide with all of this comes into focus. House Barco has taken out a massive loan from one of the region's biggest banks, clearly gearing up for a land war against House Lawrence, backed by a government note the Lawrence side insists is forged outright. Lawrence's council warns it's only a matter of time before this turns into open conflict. The Viscount's answer is that Lawrence won't give up an inch of that land, forgery claim or not. And it turns out that's the real reason Flora was engaged to Roman in the first place. Not affection, not tradition. House Dimitri's wealth and knights were supposed to be Lawrence's insurance policy against exactly this threat, whether Flora ever knew it or not. Flora, still processing all of this, has a change of heart and decides she needs to find him and warn him. She doesn't get the chance. By the time anyone reaches him, he's already dragging a battered, begging man through the middle of Lawrence's town square in full view of the horrified crowd. That man turns out to be the Bloodfang's boss himself, caught and broken, offering to devote his life to Roman in exchange for mercy. He isn't interested. The moment the man showed hostility, the offer expired. He kills him publicly, calling it what it is, removing the source of everyone's fear. It plays exactly as badly as you'd expect on someone else's territory. Lawrence's council is furious that an execution just happened on their land without their consent, and the Viscount summons him to explain himself. He walks into that office still carrying the look of a man who just finished a fight, and he doesn't bother softening it. He lays it out plainly. The Bloodfangs assaulted an innocent Dimitri citizen. He hit their base, captured their leader, and killed him on the spot. When the Viscount tries to pull rank, no authority to execute anyone on Lawrence soil, he turns the question back on him. This has been Lawrence's unsolved problem for who knows how long. He just did the work nobody else would. He even admits, almost sulking, that he expected a thank you instead of a lecture. Pressed on whether he even knew who he was killing, he doesn't blink, and the Viscount backs off entirely, dismissing him with vague promises of future compensation. Alone with an aide afterward, though, the Viscount's tune changes completely. He's impressed. This is a man who walked into another lord's territory, solved a problem that had festered there for years, and didn't even ask for credit until he was scolded for it. He has no intention of letting this marriage fall apart. If anything, he's decided Roman might be the perfect husband for his daughter after all. It's worth pausing on how much has actually shifted here. A week ago, House Lawrence saw this engagement as a burden they were forcing onto their daughter to survive a political squeeze. Now the man on the other end of that arrangement just executed a crime boss in their own square and walked out of a confrontation with their Viscount, looking like the one in control. The marriage nobody wanted is starting to look like the only good decision anyone made. Flora watches all of this from a hallway and can't square any of it with the man she thought she knew. That's the story so far on the surface. A supposed dimwit suddenly executing crime bosses and staring down a Viscount without flinching. Underneath it, though, is a man who spent his whole life on the other side of exactly this kind of power. We get a glimpse of where Junghik Baek actually came from. A demon lord's son thrown into a pit as a child and told to survive or don't. His father had 11 other children, so his life meant nothing. Beaten, mocked as some average brat riding on a bloodline he hadn't earned, he grabbed a rock and killed the boy attacking him, declaring himself a divine demon in front of everyone watching. That was the beginning. Back in his new body, he washes off the blood from the Bloodfangs and admits to himself that none of that has changed in him. He feels no guilt for what he did. He'll do worse to anyone who threatens him again. But he's also self-aware enough to know he's still weak by his old standards, and still doesn't fully understand this world, so he decides to be less openly provocative until he's ready. His restraint doesn't last through his own family. His knight captain already tells his father, plainly, that whoever this is now, it isn't the Roman anyone used to know. His father takes that harder than it sounds. Quietly, he's always been the parent who worried about Roman the most, who still remembers him as a small boy showing up with a cookie he'd saved, just to share it. Watching his son become someone capable of wiping out an entire crime syndicate should terrify him. Instead, there's a strange thread of hope in it. Like maybe the son he worried about his whole life just found a way to stop being the one who gets hurt. Sitting across from his father in that same study, weighing whether to admit what he's actually capable of, Roman decides to hide it a little longer. Buy time. Build strength without anyone expecting anything from him yet. His father, for his part, is starting to see it too. This isn't the son he remembers. He orders Roman into formal swordsmanship training and asks for a volunteer to spar him. Nobody wants the assignment. Beating the dimwit feels pointless. So Roman does what he always does. Controls the story. He tells his father he's secretly been training alone for years, and that his takedown of the Bloodfang's boss was a calculated trap. He let himself be bait, correctly betting that the boss's coerced followers would rather abandon him than die for him. His father is floored by how deliberate it all sounds, and asks to see the swordsmanship himself. With no other volunteer, the assignment falls to Chris, the knight's vice captain, the one guy skilled enough to make it a fair fight. Chris remembers Roman only as the drunk aristocrat who slapped him across the face a year ago, a man he privately thought would be better off dead. He tries to get out of the match. He can't. Everyone's heard the rumors about the Bloodfangs by now, and Chris is the only real test available. He goes in refusing to hold back, and it costs him. Steel meets steel. It shouldn't hold. It holds anyway. Roman blocks strikes that should have ended things immediately, and for the first time in the match, Chris's confidence cracks. He pushes harder, faster, until he's swinging with everything he has left in one final overhead strike, and Roman just stands there and takes the bait he set up himself. The opening comes. Roman doesn't waste it. Even when Chris manifests a burst of aura out of pure desperation, dragging power out of a body that isn't ready to give it, it isn't enough. He drops. The match is over before most of the crowd finishes flinching. It's the most power Roman has shown yet, and it isn't close. The knights watching don't have a framework for what they just saw. Now their own vice captain. Something has clearly changed about Roman Dimitri, and nobody can explain what. Chris, humiliated and unable to let it go, begs the captain for one more round, and gets flattened again. The captain reports up the chain that whatever Roman's skill is, it wasn't picked up in a year or two. He calls it prodigy level. Roman's father is overjoyed, offering him any reward he wants. Roman skips the obvious one, getting out of his upcoming mandatory service, and asks instead for permission to handpick which knights go with him to the battlefield. Permission granted. He immediately spends that goodwill on something more useful, an order forcing the reluctant captain to personally teach him how to use an aura. The captain, resentful about training the man who just humiliated his vice captain in front of the entire household, hands the actual job off to Chris instead, dangling a long-promised secret technique as payment if Chris reports back on Roman's progress. It's a convenient excuse for both of them. The captain avoids the indignity of teaching him directly, and Chris gets a shot at the one thing he's wanted for years. What Chris expects is a beginner. What he gets is Roman manifesting a full aura on his very first attempt, something that took Chris himself 10 years to accomplish. Chris doesn't take it well. He accuses Roman of already knowing how to do this and only asking for lessons to humiliate him further. Roman doesn't deny it outright. He just tells Chris something worse. The method he spent a decade mastering might be fundamentally flawed, and blind devotion to a broken tradition is the easiest way out. There's no such thing as a perfect answer, Roman tells him. Even faithfully following a teacher is just one path among many, not the truth handed down from above, and Roman knows that better than anyone, because he only reached the top of his own world by throwing out everything his father tried to teach him and building something better in its place. Chris doesn't want a philosophy lecture. He wants results. And he's furious that a man who apparently stumbled into power by accident is the one lecturing him about a decade of real work. Cornered, he demands to know what he's supposed to do instead, and coughs up blood mid-argument, the session finally catching up to a body that's been pushed past its limit. Roman recognizes the look on Chris's face because he's seen it before, on a much bigger stage. Back in Nurim, The warlord who built and led an entire cult of killers once stood against Junghyuk Baek in a battle that should have ended in a massacre either way. It did. Baek won. And afterward, the same man who'd carved out an empire through fear dropped to his knees and begged to be taught, willing to trade every scrap of pride he had left for a shot at real power. Watching Chris now, furious, humiliated, and still not walking away, Roman finds the parallel almost funny. Hunger like that doesn't care whose ego it costs. What Roman offers instead isn't a technique. It's an ultimatum dressed as an invitation. Stay by his side for the next 10 years, no matter what happens, and the answer will find him. It's the same offer, in essence, that once brought the most dangerous warlord in Murin to his knees begging to be taught. Half a year later, Chris makes his choice. He tells the captain he's following Roman to the battlefield. He wants to get stronger, whatever that costs. The captain releases him from the knights on the spot and gives him one job: protect Lord Roman, no matter what. He remembers Chris as a boy sobbing over his dead mother on some old battlefield, and he barely recognizes the resentful, changed man standing in front of him now. He sends him off with a parting gift, something Chris will need if he wants to survive out there. Around town, the rumors about Roman have taken on a life of their own. Some insist he beat the entire Bloodfangs organization with nothing but a tree branch. Others still write it off as a Dimitri-orchestrated cover story. In the middle of that noise, the boy Roman spared weeks earlier finds him in the street and finally gets to say a proper thank you. His family survived, thanks to Roman, and thanks to a job his servant helped him land. He offers the boy something bigger than gratitude: a permanent way out of poverty, a home, provisions for life, in exchange for total, lifelong loyalty. The boy doesn't hesitate. He drops to his knees and vows to follow any order, even one that costs him his life, if it means his family stays safe. Privately, Roman compares his devotion to a figure from his old world nicknamed the Demon of Lunacy, and quietly he's satisfied. He's found exactly the kind of loyalty he was looking for. In the span of a few weeks, Roman's gone from a man everyone wrote off as a lost cause to someone with a knight twice his experience choosing to follow him into a war, and a boy off the street swearing his life away for the same reason. Neither of them fully understands what they've signed up for yet. Neither does he really, not completely, but the clock on his mandatory service is still running, and every follower he gathers now is one less thing he'll have to face alone on a battlefield 6 months from today. With his new recruit settling in, Roman turns his attention to something more personal, understanding exactly how powerful this world actually is. Buried in the Dimitri library, he learns the local ranking system tops out at level 7, a tier nobody's ever reached, and that level 6 knights are called the continent's 12 blades. He clocks his own knight captain as a level 3, slightly under the world's official top tier. He reads about mages powerful enough to be treated as half-gods, feared even more than the strongest swordsman alive, and quietly concludes that nothing like real magic exists back in Mirim. This world runs on different rules. He'll need to learn them properly, and he'll need to decide, sooner rather than later, exactly what kind of life he wants to build here. Sitting in a house that isn't his, wearing a name that isn't his, he settles on an answer that sounds a lot like his old one. He was never built for a quiet life. Domination is the only thing that's ever actually satisfied him, and he doesn't see any reason that should change just because the world did. This world's whole approach to power strikes him as sloppy compared to what he grew up with. Energy stored loosely in the body instead of purified and condensed into something real. Still, sloppy or not, it's the system everyone here actually lives by, and Roman has no patience for showing up to a fight without knowing the rules of the arena. So he claims his father's old, sealed-off workshop as a training ground, and tells his servant something unsettling. He's sealing himself inside for a full week, no food required, and no one, for any reason short of a life-threatening emergency, is allowed to interrupt him. Inside, alone, he begins the actual work of clawing back his old power, what he calls the first step toward manifesting his true divine force. It means using what little energy he has to purge this weak, poisoned body of its impurities from the inside out, forcing his own mana to scrub out years of rot the original owner never even knew was there. It's agony. It's the kind of pain that would break most people inside the first hour, let alone a week. He bleeds through it anyway, gritting his way past it by reminding himself exactly why he's doing this. He's built something here worth protecting, and he intends to. While he's locked away and unreachable, the fallout from his broken engagement finally catches up outside those walls. Flora's father shows up unannounced to try to mend the marriage, and explodes on the spot when he learns it's already been publicly called off. Flora, cornered, admits the truth. She asked Roman to end it, against her father's wishes. Her father doesn't hold back, laying out exactly how much danger Lawrence is in. House Barco's massive war loan makes them a target, and Dimitri's wealth and knights were their only realistic shield. Alone afterward, Flora can't even argue with him. She knew all of this the whole time, and pushed for the breakup anyway, purely for herself. She resolves to pull herself together. Back at the estate, the household holds its breath, waiting on a man who has no idea any of this is happening. Her father doesn't wait for Roman to resurface. Certain something's wrong, he marches straight to Roman's father's office and lets the accusations fly. How dare he neglect a guest in his own house? Roman's father, unshaken, points out they never actually had an appointment today. And once the anger burns off, the real conversation starts. Roman's father admits the truth. His son told him personally that he wanted out of this marriage because of his feelings for Flora, not despite them. And he chose to let Roman handle it his own way rather than intervene. He also dropped something bigger. A month ago, House Barco quietly offered him an alliance of their own, complete with government connections and a share of Lawrence's land. He turned it down flat. Dimitri already has enough power, and, more importantly, his son cares about this woman. Flora's father is left staring at his own mistake. Pride cost him this, and he knows it. He has Flora issue a formal apology and offers to exempt Dimitri businesses from Lawrence's territorial taxes as a peace offering. That's the exact moment Roman walks back in, a full week of self-inflicted purification behind him, and it shows. His hair has gone white, his whole presence has shifted, and even his own father barely recognizes him at first. He tells the room plainly he understood the alliance being offered, and he still wanted out. It was only after Flora herself said she wanted the same thing that his mind actually changed. He points out, not unkindly, that he didn't want to break the marriage, but he couldn't just walk away when the woman he loved wanted out too. That she jumped to conclusions about him based purely on rumor, and regardless of how the world judges Roman Dimitri, he'd rather be with someone who forms opinions from what they've actually seen. His answer stays the same. The engagement is over. Faced with that, Flora's father accepts it's finished. He offers to shoulder the fallout publicly, tax exemptions, an announcement blaming Flora's personal reasons, anything to keep Dimitri from allying with Barco out of spite. It's a real offer, the kind of concession a proud man doesn't make lightly. Roman's father turns even that down. He's not interested in using his son's future as leverage for anyone's political gain, no matter how much easier it might make things. Leaving, Flora's father admits privately that he misjudged Roman completely, and that the mistake was entirely his own. Back inside, Roman's father can't stop staring at his son, trying to process what a week alone in that workshop actually did to him. The transformation gets its real explanation here. Over that week, Roman finished what he calls the human step, clearing out every last impurity in this body to build the foundation his true power needs. By Moram standards, it's nothing special, but this world has far more raw mana floating around than his old one, and Roman's borrowed body was carrying a dangerous amount of impurity to begin with. Just laying that groundwork was enough to change him physically, the white hair, the whole shift in presence. He's effectively become a different person, and he can't even clearly recall whatever realization pushed him through it. His father, stunned that actual mana is flowing through his son now, a rarity most people never get, doesn't dwell on the strangeness of it. He just tells Roman he's still his son, and that will never change. Flora finally gets her moment with him too, apologizing for jumping to conclusions and for the rift it caused between their families. He waves it off. He never intended to go through with the marriage anyway, but tells her there's something she should know. She admits the rumor that pushed her over the edge, word going around aristocratic circles that Roman was some kind of drug addict who'd lost control of his mind. He tells her he knows now it was false, but at the time he couldn't just ignore hearing it. It changes nothing between them going forward, he says. She doesn't need to worry about him anymore. Privately, though, that rumor eats at him. He never felt any addiction in this body, only the last traces of the poison the original Roman drank to end his own life, and he'd already burned that out during his transformation. So where did the drug story come from? He grills his servant, who admits he never witnessed anything directly, but does remember Roman coming home from a party about 2 weeks before his death looking genuinely ill, locking himself away, drinking heavily every night after. That party, his servant confirms, was hosted by the eldest son of House Barco. It clicks into place. The real Roman was engaged to marry Flora. He went to a party hosted by a supposed friend. He came back changed, spiraled, and eventually took his own life. For the first time, Roman has a real thread to pull, and once he starts pulling it, the official story stops making sense. A man engaged to the woman he loved, with legal ways to dodge the draft entirely, doesn't just kill himself over fear of a battlefield. He asks whether he and the Barco heir were close. His servant confirms they used to see more of each other than anyone, right up until the engagement talks started, when they suddenly grew distant. He connects the pieces himself. An alliance between Dimitri and Lawrence would have been a massive obstacle to House Barco's ambitions of claiming Lawrence's land outright. The cleanest way to remove that obstacle was to make sure the marriage never happened. He's now convinced Barco orchestrated whatever pushed the original Roman to suicide. As if summoned by the thought, an invitation from House Barco arrives, timed, suspiciously, for exactly the week Roman was sealed away training. He flinches at the name, then decides the timing itself is either shameless or a sign Barco still underestimates him. Either way, he confirms his attendance. Before that party, though, there's someone closer to home who needs attention. The boy he took in reports he's settled in fine, but doesn't know what use he could actually be, just an average kid off the street. Roman tells him plainly what he wants, for the boy to become his blade. Then he lays out 3 paths: stay safe under his servant's wing and never fight, become his protector and prove it through the pain Roman inflicts on him, or prove it faster by taking a sword to his own arm. The boy doesn't hesitate long. He thinks back to a life defined by other people taking things from him, his labor, his family's land, nearly his own sister, no matter how hard he worked to hold on to any of it. That's just how the world treats the weak, he's learned. But the one time he saw real, overwhelming power up close, it didn't take from him. It saved his family. If becoming that kind of strong costs him an arm, he's willing to pay it, and to prove the point, he actually starts cutting into his own skin right there. What the boy doesn't know is that Roman had already cast an illusion on him the second he raised the blade, meant only to test his resolve, not to actually hurt him. But the boy moved to cut before the illusion could fully take hold, slicing himself for real before Roman could stop it. Roman is genuinely impressed. Any weaker an illusion, he notes, and that arm would have come off completely. With roughly 2 weeks until the Barco party and 6 months until the draft, Roman decides it's time to get serious about turning both his new followers into something real. The training that follows isn't gentle. Roman starts the boy on a mana technique from his old life, the Ghost Soul Demon Art, an ancient method he recognizes from his time in Morim, one that's apparently been sitting sealed away in this world's own martial academy this whole time, waiting for someone reckless enough to actually use it. It doesn't build strength the safe way, hacking directly at the user's own veins, slowly eating away at their mind in exchange for raw, immediate power. Roman doesn't dress that fact up before he explains it. The boy, without hesitation, offers to cut his own arm off again, just to prove he's serious. When he asks why Roman trusts him with something this dangerous, after showing him nothing in return, Roman gives him almost nothing back, just because, and tells him training starts tomorrow.
Privately, Roman remembers being asked the exact same question once, by that old monster from his past life, the demon of lunacy, and reasons that trust has to start somewhere, or it never starts at all. For days after that, all the boy gets is grunt work, lifting, carrying, drilled relentlessly on fundamentals with zero room for error. Watching from the sidelines, Chris can't stand it. He's been at Roman's side for weeks with nothing to show for it, while some street kid with no rank at all is getting personal instruction. 2 weeks of silent frustration finally break him. He goes to Roman, actually apologizes for how he acted before, and asks to be taught something. Anything. Roman's answer isn't a lesson. It's a challenge. Spar the boy. Without real proof, Roman tells him nothing he's taught will actually land. He raises the stakes further, calling the boy essentially his own stand-in for the match, and promises to personally train Chris if he still believes he's in the right after losing. Chris is insulted at being asked to fight a total beginner, but he accepts. Before the match starts, Roman gives him one more thing to think about. There are people out there far more dangerous than either of them, the Bloodfangs among them. Is Chris planning to run from every threat life throws at him? The boy agrees to fight, and Chris tears into him immediately. A strike lands. He stays standing. Another lands harder. Chris warns him to give up before something breaks, boasting that he hasn't even used his full strength yet, that he could have cracked the boy's skull already if he wanted to. The boy refuses. Bloodied, outmatched, barely able to keep his guard up, he tells Chris to keep going. He'll take this as far as it goes.
What Chris doesn't know is that the fight was never really him against the boy. Roman is directing every single move, feeding tactical orders straight into the boy's mind through mana, letting an ordinary, untrained kid dodge and counter attacks that should have ended him 5 times over. Chris grows more frustrated the longer it drags on, until it finally clicks. He's not fighting a scrappy commoner. He's fighting Roman, wearing someone else's body like a puppet. A blade comes down. The boy isn't where it lands. Chris doesn't understand why. By the time the boy lands the finishing blow on Roman's exact call, Chris has already lost in every sense that matters. He concedes on the spot, admits Roman operates on a level he can't touch, and vows to devote himself fully as Roman's follower from here on. Roman keeps his end of the bargain, real training starting tomorrow, if Chris still wants it. Alone afterward, Chris can't quite process what just happened to him. A single sparring session taught him more than anything he'd learned in years, and trying to understand how Roman was even calling those shots is already past what he can grasp. He decides there's only one way forward: stay close, watch everything, and learn by proximity, until the day he's strong enough to surpass the man he used to write off as a hopeless dimwit. The next stop is a socialite party, deep in Barco territory. The first time Roman will stand face to face with the man he now believes drove the original Roman Dimitri to suicide. The rumor mill has already run ahead of him. Word around town says the Lawrence engagement collapsed entirely because of Flora, that the Viscount finally realized his daughter deserved someone else. Other whispers dismiss the Bloodfang's takedown as a staged stunt to save Roman's reputation. A nice story for the family, nothing more. None of it's true, and none of the people gossiping have the faintest idea how badly they're underestimating the man they're talking about. None of it matters either way, because in a private room somewhere in Barco territory, the host of tonight's party is congratulating himself on exactly how easy Roman is to manipulate. Everything, he tells the people around him, is going precisely according to plan, and he genuinely believes it. Roman, for his part, spends the 2 weeks before the party quietly studying every noble house in the Northeast, so he'll never be caught flat-footed by a name he doesn't recognize. The same instinct that once let him hold an empire together, just pointed at guest lists instead of armies. His servant, meanwhile, is dead set on dressing him for the occasion in something suitably extravagant, over his protests. Nothing ordinary is going anywhere near his lord's first public appearance since the engagement broke. Their newest recruit, a young knight assigned as backup security, is having his own rough morning, fumbling with borrowed armor that doesn't fit right, and getting scolded over a crooked helmet. Chris, still visibly stung from nearly losing to a beginner months earlier, lectures him that as Dimitri's people, they're also the face of the house, and can't afford to look sloppy in front of everyone. They're not wrong to worry. Before Roman even arrives, guests are already mocking him behind closed doors. Unkempt, an eyesore, a house too shameless and greedy to stop chasing ties with better families. Then he actually walks in, and the whispers flip instantly. Nobody recognizes him. The rumors don't match the man in front of them. He works the room with practiced ease. A noblewoman from a house with a century of history behind it finds herself genuinely surprised when Roman speaks about her family's lineage like he grew up hearing the stories himself. An older lord who fought alongside Roman's father decades ago greets him warmly, praising the Baron's wartime record, and can't stop remarking on how unrecognizable Roman looks compared to the boy he remembers. None of it is luck. Roman requested every scrap of information on the northeastern houses ahead of time, and studied it like a battle plan, because in this world, knowing who you're talking to is its own kind of weapon. Not everyone gets an easy night. Knights from rival houses corner Roman's new recruit and mock him, and House Dimitri along with him, as classless nobodies who don't belong in this crowd, needling whether he can even hold a sword up. It's the kind of casual cruelty that costs the people saying it nothing and costs him everything, standing alone in a ballroom full of people who've already decided what he is before he's said a word.
Chris tells him to ignore it, which is easy advice from someone who isn't the one being laughed at. Even now, at the center of a room full of people trying to place him, Roman is running 2 conversations at once, one polite, one calculating. Every noble he charms tonight is one less blind spot in a region that's about to matter a great deal to him. And somewhere in this house, behind one of these doors, is the man he's actually come for.
Then the invitation arrives, a private word from the party's host, calling him in for a one-on-one conversation. Roman already knows what that means. He's finally about to meet the person behind everything. Before he can even reach that room, Roman gets caught staring, openly, across the party grounds, at the woman being pointed out to him as the celebrated beauty of Lawrence. His host notices immediately, grabs him, and steers him away toward the private room with a pointed question about exactly who he's looking at. Inside, alone, the mask comes off fast. The host remarks on how drastically Roman's changed, more than he expected, then gets straight to the real subject. He remembers catching Roman in bed with his own cousin during a secret gathering months back while Roman was still engaged to Flora. Keep that quiet, he offers, in exchange for one thing, an arranged marriage into House Barco instead. That's when it hits Roman, not the threat, a memory that isn't his, vivid, intrusive, and not something Jung Hyuk Baek ever lived through. He's fought demon lords with less force than this hits him. What follows plays out like a memory finally surfacing whole. The original Roman genuinely believed he'd wronged this man by getting engaged to Flora instead of honoring some earlier bond between them, and came to this same house hoping to smooth things over. Even brought the host's cousin along as a peace offering, introduced with nothing but good intentions behind it. His host kept the drinks coming all night, waving off every attempt to slow down. The room tilted. The night went dark. Roman woke up in a bed that wasn't his, next to a woman he barely remembered meeting, with no idea how either of them got there. Moments later, his host burst in, played the part of a betrayed, furious friend catching them in the act, and delivered an ultimatum dressed up as mercy. Confess everything publicly and let the Lawrence engagement collapse in disgrace, or marry into House Barco to make things right. There was never a version of that choice the original Roman could actually take. Confessing meant destroying Flora's reputation along with an already scrutinized family name. Marrying into Barco meant losing the woman he genuinely loved. Rather than choose either, he took the one option nobody offered him. He ended it. Watching that memory land in full, Roman doesn't feel sympathy for the man whose body he's wearing. He feels something closer to contempt, a man who couldn't accomplish a single thing through his own will, weak enough to let it kill him, rather than fight for what he wanted. Back in the present, the host presses again, dangling the promise of controlling the entire northeastern region if their houses combine. A prize big enough, he clearly believes, to make any sane man swallow his pride. Roman doesn't hesitate this time either. He refuses flatly, tells him House Dimitri owes Barco nothing, especially over a threat this pathetic. Whatever leverage the man thought he was holding evaporates in that one sentence. The mask on the other side finally slips too. All that's left is a glare and the quiet, ugly understanding that his plan just failed in front of him. He doesn't linger to enjoy the moment. He finds Flora before he leaves, tells her something urgent has come up, apologizes that they barely got to talk tonight, and heads for the exit. He doesn't get far. A voice explodes behind him, sharp with fury. Steele answers it half a second later, then a body hits the ground. His newest recruit, the young knight nobody in that ballroom respected all night, is the one who fell. Whoever put him there is still standing, and whatever this party was supposed to be, it isn't over yet.